Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. This is a program about things that aren't usual, things that are kind of twists and turns in the road. And today we have a guest, a return guest, who's been on the program before. And I'm always really happy to have those return guests uh, come on with us. Today we have Preston Dennett. And Preston, welcome back to the show. Let me tell you why I reached out to you. I was listening to an old Art Bell uh, broadcast, big Art Bell fan, and you were on there talking about out of body experiences and kind of your start in the paranormal. So I thought, well, that'd be interesting to have Preston on there and on our show and talk about that. So let's do that. What Tell me about your first recognition that you are somebody who had some skills to tap into what we would refer to as the paranormal. So start with that.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Yeah, I remember doing arts show. That was probably the first time I ever talked about it publicly. This is
Really?
something that, yeah, this is something that's very dear to me. I've been having experiences with astral projection, out-of-body experiences for a very long time now, because it started happening to me when I was quite young. It all kind of rolled out in a tragic way, really. My mom passed away when I was
Oh,
19 years old, and she herself was not that old, she's 49. She had
yes, I know.
an unexpected heart attack. So this, as you can imagine, was really devastating for our family. I'm five of six kids. I'm number five in line. And I did not believe in life after death. I didn't believe in paranormal anomalies, anything like this. No. I was pretty left-brained, scientifically minded, a materialist, really. So this was doubly difficult, I think, because I had no real faith in life after death.
Mhm.
So it, strange things started to happen pretty quickly. I think the first was about 2 weeks after she died, not long, when we were holding a service for her at a friend's house. All the friends and family were there, and I was waiting for my father to drive up, and he drove up in the car, and I'm standing in the driveway along with quite a few other people, a dozen or more, and I see my mom in the front seat.
Whoa.
And I'm thinking, okay, what am I looking at? Because this cannot possibly be true.
Yeah.
And it was true because my mom had a very good posture. She was a stickler for good posture. And she was sitting straight up like she always does. And I'm like, wow, look at that. And I looked to either side of me and no one's reacting. So I didn't shout out or anything. I just, she drove right up, or my father drove right up to me. And I was probably 5 feet away at most, closer to maybe 3 feet, right? I'm right up next to me. And there she was. I could see her in
Wow.
full color, and it just pixelated away, and she was gone.
Hmm.
I thought to myself, well, I am hallucinating. Never taken hallucinogenics. They kind of, make me nervous, scare me a little bit. So I just
Yeah.
never have. But I assumed I was hallucinating from grief because,
Hmm.
ghosts, no, they're not real. There's no life. This has to be that. What else could it possibly be? Now, in hindsight, I'm thinking, well, I probably saw her spirit. uh, because it wasn't long after that, it was some months really, that I would be lying in bed and I would sit up in bed and she would walk right into my room, full color. I'm thinking I'm awake, right? And so I'm like, Mom, how can you be here? I thought you died. What's going on? And she would never speak. She'd just kind of look at
Hmm.
me and smile and kind of telepathically tell me, it's okay. You don't
It's
have to
okay.
worry. I am
Hmm.
fine. And then I would wake up, which was a shock because I thought I was awake. Now, having read about dreams, because I started reading about them after this happened 10 or 20 times, it's a false awakening. I was having a pre-lucid or lucid dream, or probably more accurately, an out-of-body experience, but I wasn't aware of it. So I was kind of really confused and puzzled, and it was interesting because I knew, on some level, I knew in my heart that that was her. Because I could sense her presence. I could feel the quality of her personality. But it couldn't be her because, there's no life after death, is what I'm thinking.
Mm,
And so I found
mm.
myself at kind of a crossroads. And I thought, either I'm losing my mind, I need to figure out what's going on here. So I started checking out books on dreams, which weren't that good, really. They weren't that helpful. But I did hear about lucid dreaming. So I started looking more into that. And that kind of led to research on out of body experiences. I found a book by
Mm,
Robert Monroe, who anyone who knows about astral projection has probably heard of him. He formed the Gateway Institute. He wrote 3 books about his own out of body experiences, out of body journeys, far journeys, and the ultimate journey. So I found his first book, Journeys Out of the Body, which he describes his own experiences with astral projection, which began spontaneously for him after he had a heart attack, started experimenting with sleep learning and anesthesia. I wasn't going to do that, but he gave exercises on how to have an out of body experience at the end of his book, which were somewhat vague and hard to, a little bit hard to understand, but ultimately really was about meditation and
mm,
visualizations and affirmations. And I thought, well, this is interesting because if he says anybody can do this, all it takes is some time and effort. And I thought, okay, this sounds a little scary, but
mm,
I really want to try this
mm,
because I mean, after my mom died, I was devastated for, a couple of years. I was crying daily. We were very, very close. So I had a real hard time with it. And I really needed to know what was going on. So that was my motivation. I had a good motivation to do this. And I started meditating about minimum 1 hour per day, but closer to 2 hours. And immediately my dream recall doubled and tripled and quadrupled. I was remembering everything that was going on at night, which was a lot of, dreams, just your basic dreams for the most part, but started to get really vivid and kind of like half waking state. I'll give you an example. I woke up one night in the middle of the night. I had fallen asleep on the kitchen floor with my head stuck under the cabinet. Now,
mm.
mind you, this is a house filled with people. There's no way that I could ever fall asleep on the kitchen. I can only sleep in bed to this day. I don't fall asleep that easily on the floor or in the car or
Right,
anything like
right.
that. So I'm like, this is confusing. How did this happen? I got up. I was very dizzy. I had some vertigo, a little disoriented, and I made my way back into bed and crawled into bed and immediately woke up and realized, oh my God, I think that was an out of body experience.
Mm,
But I wasn't quite there. But it finally happened took me about 2 months of meditating, a month and 3 weeks. And I laid down one afternoon. I was a little depressed and just kind of walked into my room to meditate. And actually, I just laid down on my stomach on my bed and instantly, like you snapping your fingers, I became paralyzed, unable to move, and I felt what we call the vibratory state. Robert Monroe talks about this. He says it'll feel like a mild electric shock. This is when you're ready to lift out. For me, it was not mild. I honestly thought I was being electrocuted. I thought I had stuck my finger in the light socket next to my bed. I'm kind of rationalizing this because I'm like, what is happening to me? I am getting electrocuted. And it got so strong. And then it popped. There was a popping sound, and I popped out of my body. And I knew instantly this was what was happening. The second I popped out, I'm like, oh my God, I am out of my body. Because I flew uncontrollably across the room, across the hallway, and into the bathroom. And I assumed an upright position, grabbed the sink, the countertop, and I looked into the mirror and I couldn't see myself. And
Oh boy, I bet that was weird.
that was disorienting in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Uh,
Yeah. I would later, see my astral body, but that time I did not. And I'm like, whoa, I am actually doing this. This is true. You can go out of body. There is life after death, because just one experience was enough to convince me. I'm like, this is amazing. I was so excited. And I learned very quickly from that instant and the rest that strong emotion will pull you right back in. So
hmm.
that's what happened. I got pulled up, I went horizontal, floated across my room. I saw somebody in there, a short little shadowy figure. Couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall, maybe five, but I'm trying to look at them, but my vision was not quite fully there. Things were cloudy and misty and glowing, and I hovered horizontally over my body and I dropped back in. And I woke up and I'm like, wow, my depression lifted. I was so happy. I'm like, I need to try this again. I couldn't wait. I'm, 20, 21 years old. Still a lot of people in the house. I'm working full time, pretty much. I'm going to college. I've got a junky old car. I am busy, writing term papers, and it's a lot to do. Chores too. So I could only do this on weekends, really. And I would sleep late, and pretty much every weekend I started having an out-of-body experience.
Hmm.
Happened the next Saturday, was the same darn thing. Felt the vibrations, floated across the room, went into the bathroom, and came back. The third time,
So,
uh,
oh, go ahead. I've got a couple questions for you.
yeah,
Go
well,
ahead.
this is how it all started. The third time I woke up and I'm in my room. It's pitch black. It's the middle of the night, and I'm standing next to my bed, disoriented. I had a little bit of vertigo again. This is a sign for me. And I'm dizzy and I'm trying to figure out, and I kind of shake my head and clear my thoughts, and I realize, oh my God, there I am lying in bed. And I could see my body under the covers. And I got this cold chill of absolute dread and horror because I thought I had died. I thought, oh my
Hmm.
God, I've gone, done, died. I'm dead. And scared me enough to dive right back into my body. It was so weird because I filled it up kind of like a jello mold. Or, into your clothes, you kind of fill them out. And I put my arm in my arm and my other arm and my legs in, and I wiggled my,
Uh-huh.
and then I woke up and almost forgot it. I woke up, I'm like, what am I doing? Something just happened. What happened? And I remembered it. So that was really scary. But after that, I'd pop up for a few seconds. I'd go, yeah, I did it, and get pulled right back in. So for a
Hmm.
year, it was about 5 to 10 seconds to 30 seconds till one day I'm like, just calm down. You're okay. Relax. And that's how I learned to extend it and started to really have some fun.
So, a couple questions. Were you ever able to communicate verbally with your mom's spirit?
Eventually, yeah. Uh, that took some time. That first year or so, I would just pop out and I'd be pulled right back in. I finally learned, and I'd be floating in the middle of my room. I couldn't move. I'm flapping my arms. I'm wiggling like a spider on a stick or something. And finally, I learned that by just intent, thought, I could move myself across the room and through the wall or through the door or through the ceiling. Started exploring the house. And one day I'm doing that, and my mom appeared. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, I ran up to her and I hugged her, and we didn't really talk verbally, but I saw her a few times again. She'd be sitting on the couch, and I'd run up to her, and we did have a conversation. But I'd wake up and I couldn't remember it. But it wasn't until some years, actually, that I was out of body. I'm like, I need to see where she is. I need to get to the other side. Because at this point, I was just kind of flying around the neighborhood and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I need to find my mom. So I popped out of body and I'm in the living room of, I'd moved out into my condo at this point from like 24 years old. And I saw this black woman standing in my living room. And I looked at her and she's beautiful. She's wearing this beautiful dress all stitched up. And I feel like I know her, but I've never seen her before in my life. And she's smiling at me, really friendly. sparkling eyes, and I rush up to her, and I'm like, "Who are you?" Doesn't say a word, grabs me by my shoulders, spins me around, and pushes me through the wall. And I popped out, and I'm like trying to reorient myself. It looked like France, like a
Hmm.
big courtyard with surrounded by a metal fence and people eating and drinking. I'm trying to figure out where am I, what's going on. And I flew up and I started calling for my mom because I would do this. I'd pop out of bed. I'd be like, "Mom, where are you, Mom? Mom, 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 mom." I'd say it 100 times and she would never appear. It was frustrating because I felt like, hey, I've met you halfway. I'm here
Hmm.
out of body. Where are you? And finally she appeared. And I can't tell you, this was the best reunion I've ever had in my life with her because she was there and I was there and I was fully conscious. She's floating in the air and I'm floating. We're looking right at each other and she looks young. I've lost most of my hair now, and even in my mid 20s, I was starting to lose my hair, but it would all
Hmm.
come right back. I'd look 18 again, and she looked
Wow.
18. I'm looking at her like, this is my mom. And when she died, she had wrinkles and gray hair and big, thick glasses. No, she looked more like my sister.
Hmm.
Long brown hair, very young, smiling, and we hugged. And I'm like, oh my God, I love you. And she telepathically spoke to me, said, I love you too. Come with me. Not in words.
Come with me.
Yeah,
Oh,
come with me. I've got
telepathic.
something to show you.
Hmm.
And she took me to the other side. And it was very strange because she just kind of like pulled me through this. I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like, how would I describe this? If you were to dive into a crystal clear lake, you're standing and you dive in, suddenly it's a different atmosphere, a different density. It was a higher energy, is what it felt like moving through a bubble membrane or something. And we plopped through it, and it was the most beautiful nature scene I've ever seen.
Hmm.
It was beautiful trees, a green pasture, a little blue brook running through it, flowers, no, not a shadow anywhere. It was listening. Everything was emitting light, and the colors were twice as vivid. It was like super, super duper high definition on a TV. Compared to reality, it's higher definition.
Hmm.
It's more real than it looks like here. It makes Earth looks like a washed out watercolor painting. I mean,
Which it
it was,
probably is.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
crisp.
Hmm.
Oh, it was so, I mean, I just can't get over it. Words don't describe it. I'm trying. I mean, the air would sparkle and you felt embraced in love.
Hmm.
And she grabbed my hand and we flew across this field to the edge of the forest there and we landed next to this little brook. And she's like, look. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And she walked into the water. She said, come on in. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, come on in. I'm like, okay. And I walked into this little stream, a little tiny brook. And it was so cool because you could feel the water. And it was very cool and very wet, but it was different. It didn't, I don't know how to describe this, but it didn't get you wet like it would here. It kind of just slid right off of you and it was very silky and it felt, I mean, you still feel it, but it was a little bit more subtle, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to describe because it felt really good. And she started splashing me with water and throwing algae at me. I'm like, I'm not doing it. She's like, come on. I'm like, I'm not going to throw algae at you. She's like, no, I want you to. Go ahead. And she threw on right on my face. I'm like, okay, fine, if that's the way you're gonna. And I did, and it was amazing. She wanted to show me how easily you can clean off because it
Hmm.
just came right off. We got out, and I was perfectly dry. I'm like, oh my God, Mom, that's amazing. She says, you haven't seen anything yet. You've seen nothing yet. Watch this. Take my hand. And we flew up, and we went to a higher energy state. There's astral planes, there's a causal
Hmm.
plane, there's Buddhic, mental, all these different, according to Eastern tradition at least, Robert Monroe talks about this. I just know what I experienced. This was a
Hmm.
this is a pretty well now I know a pretty high astral plane because there are lower ones for sure, hellish realms, which I've been to. But this she took me up to a higher level and we popped out and the energy there was so high and it was so bright. It was didn't hurt your eyes, but it was different because I could see 360 degrees around me all at once, which was a little disorienting because I'm like trying to figure out what I'm looking at. I'm looking at everything, all around me, up, down, sideways, and it's a crystal plane kind of with giant crystal boulders like amethysts or like that, but all the way down to little rocks to sand, crystal sand. And there was a crystal mountain a couple of miles away. And I looked at it, and my vision zoomed forward so I could see a mile away and look down at the ground there, just in minute detail. And I looked up and I looked back and I'm zoomed back, and there's my mom. She's sitting there on this crystal boulder, as she does, all great posture, looking at me, smiling ear to ear, laughing, kind of, very much amused by my absolute astonishment. I'm like, Mom, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I can't believe this. It was so beautiful because each of these was giving off light. And she points to the ground right in front of my feet and says, "Look." And I look down and she turned it bright orange with her, she turned it orange, in a vivid orange. And then she says, "Go ahead, eat some." I'm like, "Wait,
Eat
what?"
some. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Say that again.
That's what I said. I'm like, "What? Did I hear you?" She says, "Yes, eat some. Put some in your mouth and eat it." I'm like, "Okay, you're the boss. You know this place. I don't." But it seemed like an odd request to me. So I scooped up some of this orange crystal sand and I put it in my mouth and it started exploding like pop rock candy.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've ever
Wow.
had that, but
I know
uh,
what you're talking about.
it's a type of candy. It tasted much oranger than orange juice or any orange candy or anything orange you've ever tasted. It was
Hmm.
very vivid. And I'm like, oh, and she's laughing. And I'm like, this is amazing. And it kind of disappears in your mouth. It just melts away.
Hmm.
But I'm like, cool trick. After that, I absolutely love orange juice.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand why. So you said something kind of interesting. Um, you said there were more hellish realms too than the one you saw your mom in. So is that a function of religion? Uh, does everybody who passes go to a place like your mom went, or if they were Donald Trump or somebody like that, they've done a lot of negative things in their life, would they go to one of those more hellish realms? What'd you say about that?
let's say the vast majority of people are going to go to that garden place, which is, that's what I call it, the garden realm. I think in traditional religion, you would probably call that the heavenly realm.
Uh,
And I would say most people are good at heart and will probably end up there. And I've certainly seen a number of my relatives there who have passed on, my family and friends and so forth. But no, not everybody. Absolutely, some remain earthbound. And these are people I've learned through experience who have suffered from terrible addictions or are some way wrapped up in negativity, whether it's anger or attachment or depression or something along these lines, or might not even
wh-
understand that there's life after death. So that can also make you earthbound. But most of those actually will go up to another realm, which is very urban looking. It's like a ghetto on a bad day. A
really?
dark city street with lots of people who are not quite, spiritually developed, I guess. There's a lot of anger and frustration and depression. Uh, I ended up exploring that a lot after reading about it and hearing other people do it, because that's kind of been my MO. I'm like, well, Robert Monroe did it. If Marilyn Hughes did it, if, Robert Fisher, all these other people, I, William Buellman, I love his books. If they can do it, I can do it. That's kind of been my MO. Uh,
So would somebody have to read these books you're talking about in order to have this experience, or could it just instantaneously?
well, I've taught workshops and classes on how to do it, and some people have a very easy time with it. I mean, I taught a workshop once and I advertised, and 30, 40 people came up, and one lady walked up to me and she's like, I did it this morning. All I needed
Uh,
to do was, hear about it, and it happened spontaneously. For some people, it's
really?
that easy. For most people, it probably takes, a couple of weeks or months or up to a year. It all depends on how much effort you put forth. I've
Hmm.
learned this because people, look at it this way: learning guitar or piano or how to ski or becoming a doctor or anything takes some time and effort. And it's exactly like that. Learning a new computer program or a video game, you stumble around, it's difficult, you feel like an idiot, but if you persist, you get really good at it. It's exactly like that, like learning a foreign language. So you start out, learning a few things, and you slowly progress. But yeah, for most people, if you are willing to meditate an hour a day, you'll get right there.
So is
And
that something that's going to happen automatically for most folks? Would you
for
say
most
that?
folks, probably not. I don't know. It's hard to say because I get success stories all the time.
Hmm.
So for some people, it's a very easy learning curve.
Hmm.
There's three or four major obstacles. One is fear. So if
Yeah.
you have a lot of fear of this, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Another is laziness. You do need to put forth effort. Another is skepticism. People don't think they can do it. And that can be an obstacle as well. So these are really the main obstacles. Uh, Anyone can do this. And in fact, we all are already doing this. And I'm going to underline that. Every single night, all of us go out of body.
We
So
just don't remember it.
exactly. We
Oh,
remember it
interesting.
with little snippets of dreams,
Mm.
because almost everyone's had a dream like, gosh, I felt like I went somewhere. That
Uh-huh.
seems so real. Or, gosh, my mom came to me in a dream. I really thought it was her. Uh,
And it probably was.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Or I was flying around. It was so cool. That's probably a half remembered out of body experience.
Mm.
So,
Interesting. Very interesting. So let's switch topics a little bit. How many books have you written on UFOs?
oh, on UFOs in particular, I mean, I've written 32 books total, but I would say, gosh, about 29, 27 on UFOs.
Uh-huh.
I've got a few books on
And
the paranormal.
why make the leap from out of body experiences to UFOs? Was there some particular event that triggered that, or that just seemed a natural progression?
Yeah, well, it actually came at the same time, which, I thought was kind of coincidental and synchronistic, but now in hindsight, I think that it wasn't. There was a reason for that. Because I was skeptical of UFOs. And really, that all changed for me the moment I started going out of body, really. Pretty much exactly. It was November 1986 when I heard a report on the news about a sighting over Alaska. It's
Hmm.
a very famous case. Captain Kenju Torochi, an airline
Oh,
pilot.
Japanese, yeah, Japanese airline pilot. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about that case or any other case, either that you've looked into or that has been really impressive to you in the chronicling UFO sightings.
Yeah. Well, that was the case. I heard it on the news that got me interested in the subject. So I thought, oh my gosh, this pilot, is he crazy? What's going on here? But I remembered my older brother Mark had seen a UFO. He came running into the house when I was 13 years old. Like, I saw a UFO. And I looked at him and I said, no, you didn't. They're not real. You're
Yeah.
crazy.
Mhm.
So he shut up. He did not want to be ridiculed, understandably.
Yeah.
But now hearing about this pilot, I asked him again. I'm like, Mark, what did you see? And he described this amazing close-up sighting of a metallic disc with colored lights and a dome on top. Like, you're kidding. He's like, no, no, I chased it down the road in my car with my friends, Phil and Greg. I'm like, oh, I know them. He says, you should talk to them. They'll confirm my story. And they did. And I found out that my sister-in-law had a sighting and later saw gray ETs.
Wow.
Uh, Quite a few people. My little sister had a sighting, which she didn't talk about for a long time.
A lot of
Um,
people don't. Oh,
yeah,
one other thing I was going to ask you that's maybe related. You said one of your out-of-body experiences, you saw some kind of little creature. What was that all about?
yeah. Occasionally, I've seen things that I would say are not human. Um, I would say the first time I was trying to get to the other side, which I learned how to do from my mom. I just fly real fast straight up, and you go through this really cloudy kind of realm, and then you pop out into these garden realms. And I'm doing that, and I'm getting through this cloudy realm, and I felt something slowing me down. Something grabbed my foot, and I could feel it.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, well, that's different. For some reason, I have no fear. I got over the fear barrier real quick. Uh, but I'm like, something is grabbing my foot. That's not human, because I could feel two very long sucker-like fingers on one side of my ankle and two on the other. I'm like, I think I'm feeling that. So I reached down, and sure
Uh-huh.
enough, these were not human fingers. This was something else. And I
What
peeled it
was it?
off. I never saw it.
Oh,
I never, but I peeled it off and it's kept sticking. And finally, I pried its fingers off and off I went on my way. I think it was a
hmm,
lower astral entity of some kind.
hmm.
Uh,
Interesting.
that was the first time. But one time I'm flying along the other side. I'm like, what's that ahead of me? There's usually nothing here in this kind of cloudy place, right? Like I'm seeing two dark spots that look like eyes. As
Oh,
I'm getting closer, I'm like, yeah, those are eyes, all right. And they're big and they're almond shaped and I'm flying, I'm booking it, right? I'm going real fast. And I come right up to it, and it's a gray alien. It's a little short, cute gray alien. And my heart kind of leapt up because I wasn't expecting that. Not that I was frightened, but I was absolutely surprised.
hmm.
Now I regret not stopping, but
Yeah.
for some reason I didn't. And it kind of just looked at me as I went by.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, look at you.
Yeah. Interesting.
Um,
So,
and
what are some other UFO cases that have impressed you, either that you've investigated or know about?
Yeah, well, there's quite a few, that are really impressive to me. I like the real famous cases like the Charlie Hickson case and Calvin Parker and the Travis
Calvin Parker,
Walton
right?
and those. But in terms of ones I've personally investigated, um, which is hundreds, by the way, so it's hard for me to choose. But probably my favorite case is that of Dolly Saffron. I ended up writing a whole book about her called Symmetry. And this is one of the more recent cases I've researched. I met her in 2016. She reached out to me, and I'm like, this is a good one, because she was a very credible witness. She's a former registered nurse, had worked for the Department of Defense, had an outstanding resume as a zookeeper and oh gosh, lifeguard, other things, but opened up her life to me because her experiences were very extensive. She was having a lot of encounters as a very young girl, but at age 14 had a craft come down outside her bedroom window. So the little guys, little gray guys looking down at her, a beam of light came down, or her room filled with blue light, and she almost had missing time, but she was determined to remember this time because she had had missing time before. This time she remembered. She remembered being pulled up into this beam of light into the craft. She promptly puked. Heard a number of people say that exact thing, but she saw little grays there, a much taller gray ET who she recognized from having had previous contacts. She heard a voice started talking to her. It was the craft itself. Talata
Hmm.
is the name she gave him. Uh, this was all so interesting to me because other people have told me, well, these craft are alive. I think I felt like a living being. But Dolly was able to remember this in full detail and had an hours long encounter on that at age 14 where they took her to Saturn, flew around the rings, gave her a little astronomy lesson, took her to the moon, actually landed on the moon. I know how this may sound, but I've talked to other people who've had this same exact experience. Most don't remember it in such detail, but that was the first of what would become, pretty much monthly, every week or so, she would be pulled on board and taught all kinds of stuff. Her case is so extensive. I'm writing a sequel to the book Symmetry right now. That's my favorite case easily because she's been healed. They rescued her. They taught her how to fly the craft. They took her to their planet.
Wow.
She was there when other people are being taken on board, lifting up animals, collecting plants, you name it. She's experienced it. So that's easily my
There's
favorite
a
case.
there's a guy there's a guy that I listen to. Actually, I've invited him to come on the show, but he hasn't responded. His name is Dr. Grande. Ever seen any of his videos? I think
The
he's a
name's not ringing a bell.
clinical
No.
psychologist. Anyway, he essentially debunks everything that has to do with, uh, like Travis Walton's case, that didn't happen. Uh, a lot of the more famous Betty and Barney Hill, he doesn't believe that that happened. So I think he has a kind of a, I don't know, a very solid bias against anything supernatural or paranormal. His view is that stuff just can't happen. And I feel kind of bad. I understand why that's out there, but I feel kind of bad as to why it's out there because he would probably take what happened to you and say you were just hallucinating, but none of that stuff really happened to you. And maybe that's just a common thing that you know, contemporary science does. They don't want to buy into some of
Yeah.
these
I
more.
would eat him for lunch.
Well, you should. I
I,
wish you
I,
would.
I'm serious, because I've dealt with skeptics, and
You know,
they, by and large, don't uh, do proper investigation. They're, like you said, very biased. They won't even look at the evidence. There's case after case that is absolutely undeniable, with multiple witnesses, photographs, radar returns, landing traces, implant removals, healings. I mean, I can go on. The evidence is outstanding. There's enough in the public arena to convince anyone who, underlining objectively examines
right,
it. Uh,
right. We did a show with Calvin Parker before he passed away. What did you like about that case? The
oh,
Hicks and
yeah, it's a
Clark.
classic case. There's several things I like about it. One is that we have two witnesses who have never retracted their story, went straight to the police. The police tried to trip them up by placing a tape recorder in the
Tape
desk and
recorder.
then
Mhm.
leaving the room. And the witnesses were still sticking to their story, very emotional about it, weeping even. Both had experiences following that encounter. There were other witnesses on the other side of the Pascagoula River who actually saw the whole thing take place. Other witnesses in the whole area were seeing craft. They passed lie detector tests. I mean, the case is up and down investigated, and I think one of the best verified cases out there.
Do you have an opinion about Rendlesham Forest?
I do, yeah. I think something happened there. I am not entirely convinced it was necessarily ET. Uh, I think probably some was, but ultimately I think that a lot of that might have been reverse engineered or even some mind control experiments because the story has started to get really out there a little bit and what I would call outliers. They're not your standard contactee story because having interviewed so many people, you can pretty much predict what a person's going to say if they've had valid contact to a certain extent. Uh, I've got like 8 books on that case, and there's, 4 that I haven't read. five because more and more information is coming out about it. But initially, I was very much convinced this was straight up ET. Now I'm beginning to wonder if there's a little bit more going on than that.
We've had Gary Hesseltine on who wrote a book about it, and also Jim Peniston on talking about the code that was downloaded uh, from the craft. So I don't know. I just find that a very interesting, maybe one of the most important UFO cases, but that's my kind of point of
Something
view. Which,
happened. There's no doubt something.
yeah,
I mean, Colonel Charles Halt and
yeah.
the tape and all that. So many witnesses over a period of 3, 4 days. Stuff was going on. So yeah,
What I appreciated about Gary Hesseltine, he's a former cop, so he kind of looked at the case as a cold case kind of a thing, and kind of developed his views about what happened with using police methodology, and I found that to be pretty convincing.
yeah.
So, any other cases that you want to highlight for us? That you,
Well, there's so many. One case, it's one of my favorite, and I don't haven't talked a whole lot about it, so I thought this might be a good opportunity. Was a gentleman I interviewed who was a Coast Guard captain who was out at sea with two other gentlemen in a decommissioned Navy boat when they had just survived a terrible storm, very nearly sunk, and were pulling into a cove. I think this is in the Haiti area. No, nothing really out there. But as they're trying to get to shore, because it's still a little bit stormy, these USOs started appearing beneath their boat. And he said they looked like rings of blue light. He contacted me because I had done quite a bit of research into USOs at a time when really there wasn't anything else out there. And he wanted to know could there be any wildlife that is, ring shaped, 20 feet
right?
across? I'm like, well, I don't think so. I'll look it up. You would probably know as well as I, but no, of course not. And as I interviewed him, it became clear to me that probably he wasn't seeing the center of the craft that was solid, and that these weren't necessarily, donuts as we would think of them, but more solid disc-shaped craft. And there was a lot of them. He said it wasn't just one or two; it was 10 or 20 or more, which
Hmm.
would, appear right under his boat and then disappear. And some were quite close, 20 feet down, and others were like 50, 60 feet down and fading into the water there. But it really quite frightened all three of them, and were absolutely intelligently controlled. It wasn't a natural phenomena. I questioned him deeply on this, could there be a Navy experiment? He's like, well, listen, I'm pretty familiar with the military. I am a Coast Guard captain, a certified diver. And he's like, there's nothing out there. There's no Navy bases. There's nothing there within miles and miles and miles. There's no way this could be anything of our own. So I liked him. He was such a good witness. Very, very intelligent. It's such an unusual case that it definitely sticks in my mind. But I've got a lot of really favorite cases. I mean, there was one gentleman, Ray Sachs, an electrician's mate on the USS Clamagore, who was going up the coast of the eastern United States, offshore, about 12 knots on the surface in the submarine. And he was a lookout officer with another petty officer. And the commander and the second in command, when a USO showed up and started pacing the submarine, a big, huge disk of white light about 50 feet across, just a few, you know, less than 100 yards away from the submarine, which, in sea navigation, you don't get that close to any other, ocean going vessel. It's considered a near miss, a collision. But it paced their sub for 15 minutes, during which time all the major ranking officers came out to take a look at it. And finally, it just moved off It came in at like 100 knots and moved off at like 80 knots in another direction. And the second in command turns to the commander and says, "Sir, how do you want me to report this in the log?"
Yeah,
And the commander says, "Officers who report this kind of event do not move up in rank."
yeah.
So it wasn't recorded. But yeah, I verified the guy's employment. All the people he said were there were actually there. So it's an amazing case.
I was talking with Denise Stoner. I don't know if you know who she is.
Sure.
Uh, we all belong to something called Opus, and we were talking about what happened at the Miami Mall and how it was important for the police to come up with a counter narrative to what really did happen in the mall. And it just seemed like the story that you just alluded to, there's a bit of that uh, counter interpretive situation. It's almost like we're afraid to tell the truth about some of these events. Um, I don't know. Why is that, do you think?
Well, there's no doubt there's a cover up. It's demonstrable. It's not a matter of speculation. I think it's largely because it's a policy our governments, or secret governments even, are the highest levels of the military, the Pentagon, the three-letter agencies, the intelligence agencies. This is the policy they've adopted from the beginning.
Hmm.
I think partly because from a military mindset, they are a little bit concerned about, a quote foreign power coming here and doing things that they absolutely cannot control. But ultimately, I
Hmm.
think really it's about control over the populace. I think it's about greed and power and money. Uh, that is really what lies at the heart of the UFO cover-up. They're not going to tell the truth. They aren't telling the truth. They've never told the truth. So I am jaded when it comes to this whole disclosure movement. I think it's
Yeah, me too.
so. I mean, sure,
I
they're
think
giving us a little bit, but I don't think we'll ever have full truth and transparency.
I think disclosure's already happened, and that's with the experiencers, not with the government, but people that you and I have talked to who've had experiences. Just my opinion. So here's kind of a final question, and this is one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on. What does all this mean, Preston? What is the out of body experience? What are the UFO? Um, what are the experiences you had with your mom? What does that say about the nature of reality? And I used to teach sociology in a past life, and reality is a big part of that. Uh, Socially constructed, the truth is socially constructed, but it just seems like reality is a lot stranger than we think. Well, what's your reaction to that?
Well, my own journey is continuing with this, but to me, I think there's several important takeaways from what's going on with all humanity and Earth. One is for sure, and this is so obvious, we're not alone. We are one of many
Hmm.
species out there who are by and large humanoid, very much like us, more like us than different, some just like us, which is profound in its implications and really echoes what the ETs have been telling contactees is that we are you, you are us, we are one, we share a common heritage, we have a similar ancestry. And what I find super interesting is that why people are being taken on board. We pretty much know what to expect at this point. People being physically examined, often healed. This is a big part of the ET agenda.
Right.
But not only that, they are guiding people in their own personal lives. They are informing and educating people, taking them down to the engine room, describing how they power their craft, how we need to move beyond fossil fuels. They're warning people about the dangers of nuclear materials, using nukes in any capacity, really, but also war and aggression and greed and corruption. And over again, they're trying so hard to wake us up to our own psychic abilities. So, what we see almost without exception is contactees do have astral projection and mediumship and remote viewing and healing abilities and levitation and clairvoyance and precognition. and go right down the list. So this is how it's all tying together. ETs showed up in large numbers in the mid 1940s, coinciding exactly with the atomic age, right when
Nuclear
we
weapons.
are absolutely destroying our planet. And no, they're not taking over. They could have if they wanted, but they are working very hard, intervening to the extent that they can to set us on the right path, wake us up to who we are as immortal beings with great abilities that we are only beginning to understand. So all of this stuff is absolutely connected. And I think it's a great new era for humanity because now we know we are not alone. Now we know there is life after death. Now we know we have absolutely unlimited abilities. So these, I think, are the important takeaways. Beware of the people in power. I don't think they have our best interests in mind.
No,
Uh,
I don't either.
and if you want to know the truth, like you said, about this subject, don't look to them, look to the contactees. ETs have done their part for disclosure. We've got a database of millions, literally millions of cases. Anyone with any sense whatsoever can do a day-long investigation and see that there's absolute truth to the subject. So I think that's kind of where we're at. It's up to us to grow up.
I volunteer with New Fork, and because I used to be a MUFON field investigator, and somebody just said we have 16,000 cases that they want some follow up on. So that's kind of what I've just been doing, contacting people and talking to them about their experience. So just that experience, and I've touched just a fraction of those 16,000 cases. You got to think something's going on after you talk to these people. They're not crazy. They're not just making this stuff up. So, yeah, point well taken. Point well taken.
Yep.
Well, you've got other things to do besides talk to me. I appreciate you coming on. If you get a chance, if you can remember any UFO encounters in Olympia, just shoot me an email about that. But I'm just very appreciative of having you on, Preston. You're always welcome on this program.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's an honor
You
and a
know,
pleasure.